What if I told you that most of your suffering isn't caused by what happens to you, but by what you think about what happens to you? What if the voice in your head, the one that's constantly judging, worrying, and creating stories, isn't actually helping you, but holding you back? Today we're diving deep into Joseph Negron's groundbreaking book, Don't Believe Everything You Think, a book that will completely change how you relate to your own mind. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your thoughts aren't facts, how to stop being a prisoner of your own thinking, and how to find the peace that's been hiding beneath all that mental noise. Let's start with a simple question. How many thoughts do you think you have per day? The average person has between 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts daily. That's roughly one thought every second you're awake. Now here's the kicker. About 80% of these thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive from the day before. Negron opens the book with a powerful realization. We've become addicted to our thinking. We believe that constant mental chatter is necessary for survival, success, and problem solving. But here's what he discovered, and what neuroscience backs up. Most of our thinking is not only unnecessary, it's actually harmful. Think about it. When was the last time you had a truly quiet mind? When did you last experience a moment without that internal narrator commenting on everything? For most of us, it's been so long we can't even remember. The author shares his personal story of being trapped in cycles of anxiety and overthinking until he realized a fundamental truth. You are not your thoughts. This isn't just philosophical mumbo-jumbo. It's a practical insight that can transform your entire experience of life. The problem is we've been conditioned to believe that thinking more will solve our problems. Stressed about work? Think harder about solutions. Relationship issues? Analyze every conversation. But Negron shows us that this approach often makes things worse, not better. So what exactly are thoughts? Negron breaks this down beautifully. Thoughts are simply electrical impulses in your brain. They're mental events, not reality itself. But here's where it gets interesting. We've been programmed to treat every thought as important, as true, as something we need to pay attention to. Imagine your mind as a radio that's constantly scanning stations. Most of the time, you're picking up static, random noise, old recordings playing on repeat. But we've been taught to listen to every single station, as if it's broadcasting breaking news about our lives. The book introduces us to three key insights about thoughts. First, thoughts are automatic and involuntary. Just like your heart beats without your conscious control, thoughts arise without your permission. You didn't choose to think about that embarrassing thing you did in high school, but there it is again. Second, most thoughts are recycled content. Your brain is essentially running the same programs over and over. That worry about money? You've had that same worry hundreds of times. That self-doubt about your abilities? It's been playing on repeat for years. Third, thoughts are not facts. This is huge. Just because you think I'm not good enough doesn't make it true. Just because you think something bad is going to happen doesn't mean it will. Your thoughts are interpretations, stories, opinions, but they're not reality. Negron uses a powerful metaphor. Imagine you're watching a movie, but instead of enjoying the story, you keep getting distracted by the projector. The projector, your mental mind, is necessary to show the movie, your life experience, but when you focus on the projector instead of the screen, you miss the actual movie. The goal isn't to stop thinking entirely. That's impossible and unnecessary. The goal is to change your relationship with thinking, from being enslaved by it to using it as a tool when needed. Now, here's where most people get stuck, and Negron addresses this head-on. Once you realize that your thoughts aren't serving you, the natural impulse is to try to control them, stop them, or replace them with better thoughts. But here's the paradox. The more you try to control your thoughts, the more powerful they become. It's like trying not to think about a kink elephant. The very effort to avoid the thought makes it stronger. The author explains why positive thinking and affirmations often fail. When you're feeling insecure and you try to tell yourself, "I am confident," your mind immediately knows this isn't authentic. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken pipe. It might work temporarily, but the underlying issue remains. Instead of trying to control thoughts, Negron introduces a revolutionary approach: non-resistance. This doesn't mean becoming passive or giving up. It means stopping the war with your own mind. Think of thoughts like clouds in the sky. You don't try to push clouds away or hold on to the pretty ones. You simply observe them as they naturally come and go. This is the essence of what the book teaches: observational awareness without attachment. The book shares a powerful story about a man who was terrified of flying. Instead of trying to convince himself that flying was safe, which didn't work, he learned to observe his fearful thoughts without fighting them. He noticed, "Oh, I'm having the thought that the plane might crash." By creating this small space between himself and the thought lost its power over him. This principle applies to everything: work stress, relationship anxiety, self-doubt. The moment you stop wrestling with these thoughts and start observing them, they begin to naturally settle. This brings us to one of the most profound sections of the book: discovering who you are beneath all that mental noise. Negron asks a question that might blow your mind. If you're not your thoughts, then who are you? Most of us have built our entire identity around our thinking. We think, therefore we are, right? But the author challenges this. He points to what he calls your true self, the awareness that observes thoughts rather than the thoughts themselves. Here's a simple exercise from the book. Right now, notice that you're listening to these words, but also notice that there's something in you that's aware you're listening. That awareness, the part that can observe your thoughts, emotions, and experiences, that's your true self. This has several remarkable qualities. It's always peaceful, even when your thoughts are chaotic. It's always present, even when your thoughts are stuck in the past or future. It never judges, even when your thoughts are critical. It's naturally confident, even when your thoughts are insecure. Negron describes this beautifully. Imagine you're sitting by a river, watching leaves float by. The leaves are your thoughts, some beautiful, some ugly, some interesting, some boring. But you're not the leaves. You're the observer watching them flow past. When you identify with this observing awareness instead of the thoughts, everything changes. Anxiety becomes just another experience to observe rather than something that defines you. Self-doubt becomes just mental weather passing through rather than a statement about your worth. The book emphasizes that this isn't about becoming emotionless or detached from life. It's about engaging with life from a place of clarity rather than confusion, peace rather than turmoil, wisdom rather than reactivity. So, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually live this way? Negron doesn't leave us hanging with just concepts. He provides practical guidance for daily life. The RAIN technique. Recognize when you're caught up in thought. Allow the thoughts to be there without fighting them. Investigate with kind curiosity what's really going on. And non-attachment. Let the thoughts come and go naturally. Decision-making from clarity. Instead of making decisions from anxiety or overthinking, the book teaches you to access your inner wisdom. When you're not clouded by mental noise, the right path often becomes obvious. Relationships. When you're not lost in your story about what someone said or did, you can actually see and hear them more clearly, which transforms how you connect with others. Work and productivity. Ironically, when you stop overthinking everything, you often become more effective. Your natural intelligence can function without the interference of constant mental commentary. Handling difficult emotions. The book shows that emotions aren't problems to be solved, but experiences to be felt. When you stop resisting difficult emotions with your thinking, they move through you much more quickly. One of my favorite practical insights from the book is the mental noting technique. Throughout your day, simply notice when you're thinking and gently note thinking.
not to stop it, but to create a tiny space of awareness around it. Another powerful practice is what Negron calls the returning to presence. Several times a day, ask yourself, what would it be like to be fully here, right now? This simple question can instantly shift you from mental preoccupation to present moment awareness. So, what happens when you start living this way? Negron paints a picture of what life looks like when you're no longer enslaved by your thinking. Mental peace. You experience longer periods of quiet mind and inner stillness. This isn't emptiness, it's fullness without the noise. Emotional freedom. Difficult emotions still arise, but they don't stick around as long because you're not feeding them with overthinking. Authentic confidence. Instead of confidence based on achievements or others' opinions, you develop an unshakable sense of self that comes from knowing who you really are.
Improved relationships. When you're not lost in your stories about others, you can actually see and hear them more clearly. Natural joy. Joy isn't something you have to chase or manufacture. It's your natural state when mental suffering isn't covering it up. The book concludes with a powerful reminder. This isn't about perfection. You don't graduate from being human. Thoughts will still arise, challenges will still come, emotions will still flow. But your relationship to all of it transforms. Instead of being tossed around by every mental wave, you become like the ocean itself, deep, vast, and fundamentally undisturbed by the surface activity. Nguyen's final message is both simple and profound. You already have everything you need for peace and fulfillment. It's not hidden somewhere in the future or dependent on changing your circumstances. It's available right now, in this moment, beneath the mental noise. The invitation is to stop believing every thought that crosses your mind and start trusting the awareness that's already perfectly peaceful, present, and wise. If this resonates with you, I highly recommend reading Don't Believe Everything You Think in full. The book goes much deeper than we could cover today and includes many more practical exercises and insights. What's one thought pattern that you're ready to stop believing? Drop it in the comments below. Let's start a conversation about mental freedom. And remember, you don't have to believe everything you think. In fact, your peace and happiness might depend on questioning it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.